Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday morning, and that means one thing. That means that we have an interview today, and I just feel blessed the amount of people that are willing to come on this podcast. They are some amazing entrepreneurs, and get this, they're so motivated. That's rubbish, Dean. And today is no different. We've got Scott Voelker on. Scott is an amazing guy. I followed Scott for some time. It would go back years now. I followed Scott, and I've finally got into one of his programs about brand creating and about basically creating a niche site because I want to diversify my income. I want to have different revenue streams. And you know what? I thought Scott was the best person to break it down. And he's all about take action. And guess what? That's exactly what I'm about too. It's almost like listening to me, literally his points of views, not comparing yourself to other people and stuff. I'm like sat there going, yeah. And I'm literally like, oh my God, this is exactly what I not teach or preach, but this is exactly what I say as well. And I thoroughly enjoyed talking to Scott. It was an amazing experience. And I'll be honest with you guys, I was incredibly nervous talking to Scott because Scott is someone that I have looked up to for years and years and years. And he's just an awesome guy, dude, family man. I just love him. Cut that. No, I'm joking. He's just a nice guy. And everything he stands for, I can resonate with. I've listened, like I said, I've listened a long time. So when I finally got to speak to him and interview him, it was just an amazing 40 minutes that I thoroughly enjoyed, and hopefully you guys will get something out of this too. I've took bucketfuls of notes, and I'm sure that you guys will get something out of it as well. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking because it'll frustrate the living daylights out of you when you just listen to me and really you've come here for Scott. So without any further ado, here is Scott Voelker. Don't forget to check out his podcast, the Brand Creators Podcast, and brandcreators.com is where you can find him. All the links are in the show notes. So yeah, thank you so much. And don't forget, this is a daily podcast. And so please subscribe, like, whatever, in every single platform you possibly, or any platform that you possibly can do, whether it's iTunes, Spotify, we're everywhere, even on Facebook, and we're on LinkedIn. We're just every possible place that you can find us, we're there. Okay, my friends, thank you so much for listening to this. I really appreciate you. And please let me know if there's any entrepreneur that you would like to come on this podcast, because it's amazing, because we've got a really good audience, quite a substantial audience now, and we've had some big guests on. More big guests are willing to come on, so please hit me up and let me know who you want to come on the podcast next, because I'd love to hear your thoughts, and that way I can see where you want to drive this show, what sort of people you want to hear from, and what questions you want me to ask them as well. Okay, stop talking, Dean. Without any further ado, here is Scott Voelker. Thank you. Scott Voelker, thank you so much, buddy. I'm a massive fan, as I was telling you in the pre-chat, buddy. Thank you for all you do, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, no problem, Dean. This is exciting. This is pretty awesome to be on your show.
Yeah. So, Scott, if you could just tell the listeners a little bit about you and what you do, that'd be awesome.
Oh, do we have about 5 hours?
Yeah, go as long as you want, buddy.
No, seriously. Well, I've been at this for a pretty long time. My wife and I started a photography business after I realized, I graduated high school and I was working for my father's construction company, found out that I wasn't going to own that company as I thought. So my wife and I decided to start our own photography business, which we knew nothing about. And basically just wanted to, create our own schedule is really what we were after. 2 young kids at the time, and now we have 3. And basically I just learned a lot of business just for running a brick and mortar. Then I got into the online space, and we can dive into more of this, but just to kind of give people, just kind of paint the picture. Like, I've started kind of like in the trenches, like literally in the trenches, like on people's roofs and like doing like construction stuff, like out in the heat, in the cold, lived in upstate New York for over 40 years. So worked my butt off, but have built myself a pretty good skill set over the years, if I don't say so myself. Give myself a little bit of credit because I've been at it a long time, but I've learned a ton. And the reason that I've learned a ton is because I've done a lot, and I've been willing to fail. I've been willing to learn, and I use everything and experience. And you said this in the pre-interview, a lot of what you do, you look at it as just like, it's a learning experience.
Yeah.
So, just a little bit of background on me. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I've been married for 26 years. I've got 3 beautiful children, 12, 22, 25, just had my first grandchild. And and I'm just loving what we're doing here on the online or in the online space to help other people build their businesses and reach that freedom level that they're looking for.
Yeah. So Scott, I'm going to hit you with a big question first of all. What does success mean to you? What is success?
Well, success means the dogs don't bark when you're on an interview. That's number one. The second thing is, the first thing is success looks like for me is like being able to really create your own lifestyle, your own, your own day to day, right? I don't look at success like I have $100 million business. I would never want that because I know what comes along with that, right? Employees, a lot of support, like all of that stuff. It feels really heavy, right? Yeah. So I look at success and it really goes back to what really was success for me was the day that I was able to quit my job, my construction job, leave that, start a photography business, and really allow that to pay our bills as I was able to drive our kids to school every single morning, pick them up every single day, go and coach my son at Little League and never miss a game, never miss a recital, never miss a school play, none of that stuff. And that to me is what success looks like, So to me, it's all about, and freedom is kind of like overly used, but it's the freedom really to be able to pick and choose where I want to spend my time. And, if I want to take a week off, I can do that. I don't have to put in a request. I don't have to balance my schedule with someone else in the office. So that to me is success. And yes, money is part of that, but money really just allows us to live the life that we choose. So that's what success means to me.
Do you know what? I absolutely echo everything you've just said. It is literally 4:10 here in the UK. And this is the first bit of work I've done today. Is it Tuesday, isn't it? And I've been at home with the wife. I played with the kids because it's school holidays. And for me, the biggest part of success is setting my bricks and mortar business up, my online business, to make sure that it runs. We have system and procedures that, obviously I do a little bit here and there, but it doesn't need me day to day, and I can take off the time and spend it with my family. And do you know, when I was younger, Scott, I used to think success was having the millions of pounds in the bank. But as you get older, you realize that, do you know what? That's nice, but it's not really what makes you happy.
It's really not. I mean, you're right though. As you're young, you see all the flashy, stuff, the cars and the motorcycles, and as you get older, you still want your toys. And I've got a '73 Mustang, right? Like it's not like $100,000 car. I think I paid $25K for it. I might have dumped another 10 into it to get my manual transmission that I wanted. I might have $35K into it, but I've waited so long to have that because I put everything else off so I could provide for my family, right? I had the minivan. Right? Like I did the stuff for the kids when I sacrificed for them and waited a little bit for what I wanted. And to me, like the flashy car for me is my '73 Mustang that I gave up when I got married, when I had kids to remodel my house, like those types of things. So I agree with you. I'm not looking at like, how do I make, a ton of money so I can buy the toys? It's more about how can I make money that can also diversify other revenue streams so I can have less worry and losing sleep over, am I going to be able to have enough in that off season? Because in our photography business, we would have a really high season and then it would drop right off. And then we'd have to, figure out what we were going to do and hopefully made enough to carry us. I wanted just stability and diversification. And that's always what I've done, whether it's, online, brick and mortar, doesn't matter. It's all about being reliable with the money coming in. And that's success to me as well.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I do want to earn the money as well. But for me, I just want to spend a lot of time with the kids as well while they're off on summer holidays and make sure I'm there as well. So you're very, very busy. You're an author of a book. You've got a podcast with over 15 million downloads. You've got the Brand Creators Academy. What keeps you motivated? What keeps you going in the morning? What keeps you getting out of bed?
Yeah, it's funny because you think that once you reach a certain level of success, right, you feel like, I'm going to be perfect. Once I get there, I'm going to be able to take a big deep breath and I'm going to be able to say, yes, I made it to the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
But what I've realized over the years is there's always another mountain to climb, right? There's always another mountain to climb. And that mountain is just like your next thing that you're growing towards, right? Like a lot of people say like, Scott, what are you going to do when you retire? I'm like, I feel like I am retired.
Yes.
I'm doing what I love. I'm never going to stop doing what I'm doing. I'm never going to stop building stuff, right? Like I look at like building our niche site, like a niche site that might generate $1,000 a month as like a piece of real estate. And I've talked to you before about this. It's like, I look at like, I'm going to create, just like you did with your brick and mortar, I'm creating these little systems and processes that can be replicated. So we're going to build a house. We're going to learn by building the house. We're going to streamline the process. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to build another one. Right. Yeah. And then we might sell one and we might then reinvest it in something else. Right. But I'm always going to be building things. So for me, I'm always looking at what is something that gets me excited. What's also something that challenges me. Right. Like it's not always going to be easy. Right. I'm not saying like you're going to do something today and it's going to work again. Right. There's going to be things that happen. There's algorithm changes. There's, Pinterest is going to be finicky 1 month because of something. Well, we have to figure that out. Right. And so I always look at it like, what am I doing right now that allows me to grow and learn from? And serving people is a big part of that. Right? Like by having people like you say, Scott, I've been following you. I've been listening to your advice and I love it. And I'm seeing results, whether those results are money or it's just freedom or it's you getting out of your own way. It doesn't really matter to me. It's like, did I help you in one way, shape or form to get you a little bit closer to where you want to go? And so to me, it's the people, it's serving. I'm at that level now where it's like, how do I serve more people? The people that I want to connect with.
Yeah, I'm a member of your Brand Creators Academy, and what you've done, as I said in the pre-interview, you give me the confidence to make sure that, because I never knew what I was doing at all in creating a brand in a niche. I was like, what? SEO, I've never done this before, but you do it in such a step-by-step way, and I know exactly how you feel about creating these little niche sites that creates $1,000 profit a month, because I've just bought one, a hamster website, and I'm just saying how exciting I am. I've got another business that it's massive in comparison, but I'm so excited by this little hamster site because you talk about it as a digital real estate, and for me that's exactly what it is. I could spend £200,000 and have a bit of real estate that might only make me £1,000 or £1,500, well, £1,000 a month, but then I can have a niche site that can do exactly the same, and it doesn't cost as much to get in. It could maybe cost, you can either buy your way in, so like I've done, I bought my way in and bought a site, a niche site, or you can build it. You can spend 12 months, 18 months in creating that, and I get so excited as you do about that as well. And I feel like we've glossed over something, that you've got over 15 million downloads on your podcast. I've nearly got 1 million, and I just can't imagine what that's like to get to the 15 million. What made you start podcasting then, Scott?
Yeah, well, a little update on that number. We actually crossed 16 million. So
did you really? Oh, sorry.
Yes. So that's fine. But the numbers are good, right? Like you look at the numbers because the numbers give you a gauge of how well you're doing.
Yeah.
Now, like I think in the beginning when I started the podcast, I had no idea where it was going to go. And you probably know the story because you've been a long time listener, right? Like when I started the podcast, I had no idea if there was going to be listeners, right? And so as I started to do it, I was actually, and you know this, I started the podcast really documenting my Amazon journey, right? And over the years, that's changed, right? Scott used to be known as, and to some people still is, as like the Amazon guy, like how to get started on Amazon. And, my path has changed, right? Yep. My things that I'm working on have changed. So I'm not going to just teach the old anymore. I'm going to teach what I'm doing and where I'm going. And people can still follow along. So I will say, like in the beginning, I got a lot of downloads from that pocket, right? And so now we've kind of went down a little bit, but actually in a good way, because it's now we did a pivot, and because of that, we're able to now serve a market that I want to serve. And yes, the people that are looking for Amazon only advice are probably not going to want to, listen to the podcast anymore. And that's okay. I think that's an important lesson for people to understand, that you're going to have these pivots over time. And I've had multiple ones. That's why I wrote the book, The Take Action Effect, because there's these take action moments that when you do something, you learn from that, but it also allows you to get to where you're going next. So I don't even know what the question was now, Dean, but I don't know how I got on that.
Yeah, no, I love that. It was why did you get into podcasting in the first place? And just to, I've done recently exactly the same as you. I had a betting shop and I sold the betting shop. That's all I knew when I was younger, and regular listeners will know that I sold it to Corals, a big national firm, and I was known everywhere as the betting guy. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to start a podcast, because although I started a self-storage company, I was always known that. So I dipped my toe back in. I didn't know if anyone would listen. We got like 60,000 downloads a month. Everything was going really, really well. But it wasn't who I was anymore. Do you know what? It was who I used to be, but gambling and betting, it's kind of not where I want to go now. And so we've pivoted. We do this podcast, and then we do a hacking self-storage podcast. So when you pivoted from the Amazing Seller guy, was that a big decision for you to make, to go to brand creators?
Yeah, it was huge. And it was one of those things, right? It's like you would look from the outside in and go, oh, Scott's got all the confidence, man. He's not afraid of doing any pivots, but that was a scary one for me as well. Like, it was scary getting into the podcast, and then it was scary to then say, hey, listen, audience, I'm changing, right? Like, I'm going and literally like rebranding. Like, if you're watching this and not just listening to it, I don't know, is yours a video podcast too?
Yeah, it's a video podcast.
Yeah. So if you're looking behind me and if you're listening, you don't see it, but I've got a sign and it says Rock Your Brand Podcast. And so that was a whole long like discussion amongst myself and my family and, close friends of mine. And really, I just had to go with what I felt was the next thing for me. And I think I could live in the Rock Your Brand, brand, hence the name brand. I could live there for a very long time because it goes well with who I am, and not just who I am today, but who I am in the future. I know, because rock is like my background, like rock music, right? Like, so it was just a natural fit. Brand creators is kind of like what I teach. It's what I want to surround myself with. And it's really like, not just going after and money grabbing. It's like, how do we build something? And it doesn't mean it has to be like a major brand. It just means that it's on focus, or it's on, it's in that direction of a niche or a sub niche, right? If you're, like you, if it's about hamsters, it's going to be about hamsters, and you're going to be the hamster brand, right? It's the same idea. It's just not I'm going to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks under one brand, right? Yeah. And so for me, brand creators just made a lot of sense, because that's what I'm doing. And it falls in line with everything that I'm about and everything that I've done for the past 20 years. It's like, when I was in photography, I had to build a sub niche inside of the giant photography market locally, and then get ourselves known, right? And a lot of the things that I did back then, we're doing today just differently, with different tools, different ways, but it's still people are people. And, you're still offering services, and then you just have to understand marketing. And I think that's the big one for me, is like, everyone always is going to need to understand marketing.
Yeah.
And that's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah, do you know what? I know exactly where I was when I was listening to you. I was driving the car during COVID, and I remember thinking, wow, you're so excited about it. For me, it didn't look like you had any doubts whatsoever. And you said something that I've never forgotten, because this is a daily podcast. We do one interview per week, and then we do a daily takeaway, what I've learned from listening to people like yourself and, other books that I've read. And Pat Flynn gave you a little bit of advice, saying, what would you want somebody to be saying about you if you overheard him in the coffee shop? And I was like, oh my God, that's not just for that bit of advice there for your, in particular, it's for everybody in life, about how you want to show up to every different situation. And I did a separate podcast about that, saying, look, how do you want to show up? How do you want people to talk about you when you're not there, or if you was eavesdropping them? And I thought that was so good.
It really was. And it's funny, because he had gotten that advice from someone else. It might even been Michael Hyatt. I don't know. Yeah. And so then he gave it to me, and it was funny. I was thinking about that. It would probably be interesting for me to do a podcast on that as well.
Yeah.
And actually take the voice recordings from me and Pat going back and forth, because you could hear in my voice, like, I was just not sure. And I was wrestling around with, like, should this be right? I was even afraid to even say the name. Is he, is he going to think I'm crazy? And, like, what kind of advice would you give me? And he came right back. He's like, dude, I love it. Like, I love it. And it's so who you are. And, you just have to own it. He goes, of course, yeah, you can do, some cheesy stuff with, like the rock stuff. But if you just do it in a way that fits you and your style, I think you'll own it. And I needed to hear that. And when I did, I just said, you know what? That's 100% accurate. And that little example, and I think anyone can do that, right? Like, someone walks into a coffee shop, they spot you, or that one person knows who you are, but the other person doesn't. And you're like, oh, there's Scott. And they're like, oh, who's that? How do they describe you? That is huge, because if they're still describing you as the old you, then you got to start creating new messaging, right? And that's the big one for me. I started creating new messaging on the podcast that all of a sudden you're like, I haven't heard Scott talk about Amazon in a long time, right? Like and if you've noticed that, Dean, it's like you start to create that in just by you and what you show up talking about. And yes, some people are going to be like, I don't want to listen to that episode. It doesn't give me anything about Amazon. I'm like, that's okay. That's not what I'm going to be talking about right now, right? Like, doesn't mean I'm not going to ever talk about it. It's just like not going to be my main focus. But yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up, because that is a big moment for me too, and it was a huge like awakening for me.
Yeah, do you know what you just said there that I think is so true, and it's something that everybody could listen to and learn from, is the fact that you, of all people, who's got 16 million downloads for your podcast, ultra successful, doing speaking gigs around the world, and you still was insecure, and you still wasn't 100% about your decision. You didn't know if it was the right thing to do. And so it's okay for people to have doubts. And you always say, like, keep putting one step in front of you and taking action. That's all you've got to do. Take action. And I think that is so, I think people should really listen to that bit and know that, do you know what? It's okay to be unsure, but all we've got to do is carry on taking action. If you carry on taking action, you're either going to be successful or you're going to learn. That's it. There's no other two ways. You're either going to be successful and move forward, or you're going to learn from your mistakes and move forward.
Yeah. Well, there's a big thing that I talk about, right? Taking action. But the big thing about the action part is that when you take action, you get a result. Yeah. Regardless if it's good or bad, you get a result, right? It's like, inside of our academy, currently we're teaching this email marketing accelerator training. And, once we get the stuff built, right? Like we get our lead magnet, we get, our landing page, right? And then we turn on a Facebook ad, we get to see the results, like whether it's good or bad. Then we can start asking questions. But a lot of people, they get stuck in the, oh, but what if this? And, oh, but I don't know, what if I don't know how to run the ads? Well, you can start learning how to run them. And then when you learn enough to just at least get one up, then you can start to ask other questions, right? But there's all of these or it's not perfect, right? Oh, what if someone looks at my email and they say I did a bad job, or I made a spelling error, and they email me and say, you made a spelling error. And you're like, oh, sorry. Yeah, I do notice that now, right? You're not going to die from it. It's just, those are the things that hold people back. So for me, you're right. Like I do still face those things, but I do usually find a way to push through it. Right. And take a step back a lot of times and say, okay, wait a minute here. Why am I feeling this? Right. Should I be feeling this? Instead of telling myself these stories, because we like to tell ourselves these negative stories.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you take a journey, when you start going to work, the lights are never ever green. There's always going to be a red one, so you just got to take action. And JLD says, I know you're friends with JLD, and just when you start on the ladder, you don't need to know the very, very end of a run of a ladder. All you need to know is the next step, and break it down into manageable bite size. And I think that's what you do great in Brand Creators. And so for people listening who don't really know what Brand Creators is, could you just tell everybody what Brand Creators is and what you do and how you help people?
Yeah, well, okay. So Brand Creators as a whole is really the way I look at it. Because when I was kind of laying this all out in my head, I'm like, okay, the old, the new, right? And I'm like, what does this look like? And so for me, I wanted a name, number one, that represented what I want to be known for. And that is helping people build brands. So Brand Creators, right? So we're helping people like you build brands, right? So we're creating brands. So for me, the podcast, Rock Your Brand Podcast, is a subset of that, right? It's an extension of that. But really on Brand Creators, that is all about the information that helps people build brands. Now, there's a mix there, right? There's going to be the podcast, which is free. There's going to be maybe a workshop that we do. Maybe there's an in-person workshop when we get out of this COVID thing. We've done lake house, workshops and master shops and all of that stuff. So that's kind of all under the umbrella of Brand Creators. And so there's the free side, which is like free education, the podcast, some workshops, because we do, have some free workshops that we do. There's checklists and stuff like that. But then there's the paid side. You're like, okay, people want to work closer and they want a support group of brand creators themselves. So that's where we came up with Brand Creators Academy. That's where we actually have a paid group of people that are there monthly, and we are there to help them month after month and give them the right tools and the right, information. And we also document what we're doing so we can share that along the way. So that's kind of it as like a whole. If you were to look at it that way, we have Brand Accelerator Live, which this year we have to do virtual, which we just announced that's going to be September 12th. So, brand creators as a whole is people that want to build a brand, but they want a simple approach and they don't want to be overwhelmed and they want to take it one step at a time and really just not waste time chasing all these different shiny objects.
Yeah, because you can so easily get overwhelmed. And that was the one thing I was worried about, getting overwhelmed, starting something that I've never done before. I've never really, I'm okay in terms of self-storage SEO in local, but I've never really done all these keyword research. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, I was getting overwhelmed before I start. And because I've read your book and you keep saying, take action, take action. I thought I'm going to give it a go. I know I like and trust Scott. So let's join up. And the biggest compliment I can give you is that I've never felt overwhelmed whatsoever. You have a 30-day challenge, you go through it step by step by step. And this isn't an advertisement for your, for your products, for your academy, but I've enjoyed it so much. And all my friends listening to this will know that I've bored them to death with this about digital real estate, buying the hamster website. And I'm genuinely so excited because it's something that anybody can do. You don't need any previous experience, and you even start for the process of literally helping them buy the website and where to host it, and really simple and straightforward things like that. That's day one, that's day two. So I feel like that it's a really fantastic site, and the fact that everybody is helping out in the Facebook group as well, which is great. You put a message on there and you yourself come in and help out, but also other members as well all come in, and I feel like it's part of a community as well. And so for me, community is fantastic, and I suppose people come for the course but they stay for the community, and the community there is great. And so if you've got one bit of advice anybody looking at starting a niche brand site, what would you recommend?
Yeah. Well, okay. So there's a couple of different paths that you can go down, right? So the very first thing is, if you are someone that wants to be the person in the brand, right? So like you bought a site about hamsters, maybe you're probably not going to be showing up as the hamster guy. Maybe you are, but maybe you just want to create this thing that you're not the face of it. Maybe you're going to have a face of the brand, because I think everyone should have like a voice to the brand. But if you let's just start with this. Like, let's say that you are a diehard fisherman and you're just like, I just love talking about fishing. I want to start a niche website and a brand around bass fishing, and I want to share everything that I do, and I want to just build an audience in there. That's an avenue, right? Like I would go down that road, because to me, that's a great way to keep you excited while you're building something. If you're starting from scratch and you're like, I don't want to be the face, I will tell you, it's going to be a challenge at times when you're not seeing the results until 6 months later to stay consistent, because you're getting bored with creating the content or whatever, right? So what I always tell people is, if you have something that you are passionate about or at least interested in, I would start there. Right. And that way there, you're staying motivated, you're staying wanting to do it, because you're not like getting bored and all of that stuff. But it still follows the same principles. We have to establish that there's traffic. For me, it always starts with traffic. And if there's traffic, then I need to figure out if there's actually products or if there's ways for that brand to make money. So there's really only two things that I'm looking at. I'm looking at traffic and I'm looking at, money. Can that business make money? Because if I can get the traffic, then there's a good chance that I'll be able to turn it into money, right? And there's a variety of different ways that we kind of go through that process. But it really still follows that same framework. So whether you're going to be the face or someone else is, or maybe you're just going to create a faceless brand like the one that we're building in the academy, it has nothing to do with me, right? But there is a face to it. It's just not me. And I wanted to build that thing, number one, just as a case study, and get it to $1,000, and then it'll be a piece of real estate that I just built and I'm collecting rent every single month. Like, that's how I'm looking at it. So to me, if you have a passion, I'd start there, because it's going to keep you motivated, but you do have to validate that it has traffic, and you have to validate that there's multiple ways to make revenue. And a few ways, just to kind of throw it out there, is ad revenue. There's platforms like Ezoic, there's Mediavine, there's AdThrive. You can also do affiliate marketing on there. You can go to ClickBank and find digital products that potentially the market is buying. You can go to Amazon, see what products are selling there, and you could be an affiliate for those. You can also create your own digital products, maybe a little ebook, or maybe it's a little mini training or something like that. So I'm looking at all of those things after I establish that there's traffic out there that I can get in front of. That's it in a nutshell.
Oh, I absolutely love that. Yeah. And so in terms of business, Scott, I love this question. What is the 20% of effort that gives you 80% of your results?
20%. Well, I would say really focusing on, and I think what you're kind of referring to is like, what are you spending most of your time on that's actually yielding the result?
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say really is, and for me, it's different though, right? Because I've got like, for me in brand creators, it's different than building just a straight up niche site, right? So for me, if I'm talking about the podcast and brand creators and doing that, like this is my passion project, right? It's really connecting with people, helping people without expecting anything in return.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing. Like me doing this with you, I'm not getting paid for it, hoping that it'll reach more people. And then maybe a few people will come over and listen, and maybe, who knows, maybe join the academy when they're ready. Right. So it's about how do I help more people at scale so we bring more attention to the brand. Now let's take it the other route. If it's like, okay, inside of, the other, maybe brand that we're building, what is going to be better served for the time that you're using? I would say very similar, that you want to create assets out there that can be found. Okay. Whether that's Google, whether that's Pinterest, whether that's email that you're sending out, whatever, that you're able to then create valuable resources for people to get an answer to their question or a solution to their problem. So anything that we're creating in any of the brands is always putting out useful content. And it can be just a question. It can be just like, can you catch bass on a rubber worm? Like that's a solution that you're providing. It's a small one, but then you are showing up to the marketplace as adding value, not just asking for money. So I would say I'm always focusing on how do I add value to the marketplace to get attention. And then from there, I'll think about how to monetize.
Yeah, absolutely. I love doing something like a podcast, because I know that for me, when my kids grow older, they're 4 and 6 at the minute. When they grow older, they can listen to their dad talking about what he's learned and the journey he's took. It's a daily podcast. So I batch record, but I literally talk about the things I've learned. And it might only be a 5 to 10 minute episode, but hopefully that's like an asset to me. It's a digital asset that's going to sit on my platform for years and years and years to come. And hopefully it will impact somebody, or will help somebody, or will help my family for years and years to come. It sits there. I've done it for 10 minutes, but it's repurposed and re-listened to over and over again. So that's what I love about podcasting, for example. So Scott, if you could pick up the phone to your 20-year-old self, what advice would you give him?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. I would say, because at 20 years old, I had no idea, right? I was, at the time, I think I had just started working for my father's construction company. I probably would have given the advice that what you're doing now will not be what you're probably doing, 10 years from now.
I love that. No one's ever said that.
Yeah. So it's like, understand that and be okay with it, and just absorb the information or the learning that you're doing right now, to know that this is preparing you for the next thing. I was so, I guess, focused on, I want to basically work in something and then retire. Right. I had this mindset that you put in your 20, 30 years and then you retire, because that's what teachers did. Right. They worked in the school, and then you would hear, oh, so-and-so's retiring. They were here for 30 years. And I'm like, so I guess you got to work at a place for 30 years and then collect the pension. I guess that's the way it's got to be. Right. And I wasn't brought up with my father giving me any of these lessons, because he didn't really understand those lessons either. He was raised as a farmer. So I would say, listen, what you're doing right now, it's not what you're going to be doing in 10 years, but what you're doing in 10 years, it'll become aware to you as you go through this process. And then pretty much every 10 years, it's probably going to happen again. And the one bit of advice my father did give me, though, and this wasn't because it was business, this was more of him just being like, Scott, you're thinking this way now, but you're going to change. And it might've been when I was really like, in my teens or whatever. And I thought I knew it all, right? We all think we know it all when we're a teenager, even young adults. And he said to me, he said, Scott, I'm telling you right now, your mind is going to change every 10 years. So what you think now or what you think might be important, or you'll say, I would never do that. Don't ever say that, because in 10 years, your mind will change. I'll give you a great example of that. I used to say as a teenager, I'm never going to own a minivan, ever. I'm not going to be caught dead in a minivan. Those things are for, for people that are, just, they don't care about what they look like. I rolled in to get an oil change one day on our Pathfinder, and I left there with a minivan. Didn't care, because at that time I'm like, I don't care what I look like. This is convenient, right? So your mind will change every 10 years. That was taught from my father, and I actually lived it, and I still live it. So that would be the advice I'd give to my 20-year-old self.
I think that you've actually mentioned that before somewhere, and I believe that I got it from you, and I did an episode about that saying, listen, what you think now, you will not think in 10 years' time, and you don't want to think the same as you are thinking now. I don't want to be acting the same as 29-year-old Dean, because I want to be completely different. And if I'm still acting and feeling the same way, guess what? I haven't progressed as I want to be. So, I did a full episode about that, and I love what you said, just bringing back to what you said at the very start of the interview, that you don't feel like you're working because what you're doing now, you want to be continue doing because you enjoy it so much. And I think that is amazing. If people can actually, I love my work, I love my job, I love every single part about it. And like yourself, I could never ever retire. And I think that in itself is a massive blessing to love what you do. So Scott, in 12 months' time, where do you see your business? Does it change, or are you happy progressing the way it's going now?
Well, that's a great question. With what's upon us right now in the world, it's all up in the air. But if I was to say, I believe, and I mean, I'm talking more on the side of like brand creators in the podcast. I think we will grow. And the reason why is, number one, I think that the informational space is going to be growing because of the times. But I also think that and then this has been probably an 18-month, 2-month transition to where I am going to be starting to serve the market with other products, not just in the academy. And part of that reasoning is because I want to reach people that are like, you know what, I don't want to join the academy. I don't want to be in a monthly thing, or you still get that rub every now and then. So I want to be able to put out smaller products in a sense. And I don't mean like a whole suite of them. I'm talking like a workshop that we would do. And it would be like a lower ticket price, but it's also going to get them introduced to our teaching style and stuff like that. So I think over the course of 12 months, I'm really going to be focusing on how to reach more people, but also the right people. And I think that will allow us to grow there. As far as the niche sites that I'm working in, I really feel like those will continue to grow as well, because we're just going to be consistent. I think consistency trumps everything. So I would say, in 12 months, I think we're going to be steady, and we're going to be growing at a steady rate. But part of it too, Dean, is that I don't want to be going crazy out of my mind with stuff. So part of me is I'm slowing down a little bit, because last year was a crazy year for us. So I also learned from that I don't want to be that busy. So I'm going to pull back a little bit, restructure what I'm doing, and only focus on the main things that I want to. And again, remind myself, why did I start doing this? I didn't start it to be busy and to be stressed out of my mind. I did it because I wanted to have that lifestyle. So I have to kind of almost bring it full circle and say, let's reevaluate what you're doing, Scott, and let's be more intentional.
Enjoy being a pop.
Exactly. Which, is a whole another animal. But if there's one piece of advice though, Dean, if you don't mind, I want to share.
Oh, go for it, mate. I'm loving it. I'm just like, literally, I don't even know I didn't even have a question lined up, because I'm just intently listening to what you're saying. I'm like, oh, sugar, it's my turn to talk. And I'm just listening and taking notes, buddy. Go ahead. Yeah.
There's one piece of advice that I'm really probably going to start leaning into a little bit more. And that is, we're in a world of like vanity numbers, right? Like we look at people on social media and they've got, 10 million followers, or they've got 100,000 followers, and you've only got 2, or you've only got 100, or you've only got 5,000, or whatever it is, right?
Yep.
In Instagram, for example, I tried my hand at Instagram, and then I was like, holy crap, like this is a lot of work, man. Like you got to feed that algorithm every day, or you got to have someone. And even if you have someone do it, you pretty much got to still be part of it. And then if you're not showing up all the time, then you start to lose momentum. But then you look at other people in your space and you're like, wow, they've got a lot of followers. I should probably start to work on getting more followers because they're getting reach. But then I look at the reach and I'm like, well, wait a minute. They've got 100,000, but they're only getting X amount of views. And I'm like, so it's really not that great. So what I'm trying to say here is don't compare yourself to others, okay? And think that you have to go down that path of what everyone else is doing in your space. If you are someone like you or like that we're building an audience, right? We can't worry about what we look like. The right people will come by. And if the numbers are small, it's okay. Serve those people, right? And there's an article out there, a great post that I forget who wrote it. I should know this, is Your True 1,000 Fans.
Yep.
And that blog post will tell you and share with you, if you have the right 1,000 people in your audience, you'll be set for life. And I truly, truly believe that. So if you do a Facebook Live and you only have 10 people showing up, serve those 10 people. You will impact those 10 people, and then they will tell people, and then they will tell people, and it will grow. And maybe it's slow, but just do not compare yourself, because I did fall into that trap, being totally transparent here. Like I'm like, oh, I got to get my Instagram going. Like, oh, I'm not doing as much as I should be on Facebook because they changed the algorithm and now I got to do this. And then I was like, one day I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do any of that stuff. I'm only going to do what I want to do. If I want to post on Instagram, I'll post on Instagram. If I want to post on Facebook, I'll post on Facebook, right? Now, if I'm being deliberate with Facebook ads, sure, I'm going to put money in and I want to get my return back, of course. But the whole social media game, I'm big on create an asset once, benefit for a long time, right? Yeah. If you think about it, Instagram, it's an everyday thing, right? If you're not in the loop every day, you're gone, right? No one's searching for stuff on Instagram, right? No one is searching on Facebook really for how to do something, or maybe something that you said, unless they're binging you, which is great. That's why you can still have it there. But those two platforms, I'm really not like TikTok, right? I'm not doing TikTok, right? There's a lot of people like, oh, you got to get on the TikTok game. I'm like, I don't want to, right? Like, I don't want to. I'm going to show up on my platform, the podcast, right? I'm going to go on my little coffee talks that I do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in the morning, and whoever shows up, and I'm going to do those. And those also, are evergreen assets. So I'm always looking at evergreen. So I'm just, for people, don't compare yourself to the vanity numbers that you're seeing. And to be quite honest, a lot of those numbers are vanity, because I know from being in this space, there are services out there that are building these audiences that are not responsive, but it's to show them that when someone wants to book you, they're like, oh, I should book so-and-so because they've got 100,000 followers. Yeah. But what you don't know is those 100,000 followers were bought, and they're probably not even active. So again, that's just my little rant there on the vanity stuff.
I love that. I've got 3 takeaways from that, right? So shiny object syndrome about TikTok or anything, and I'm going to wrap up in a second. You give me the strength during lockdown not to get on it, because you kept on saying in your coffee talks and your podcast saying, don't get distracted. Just stick to one platform, understand it, learn it, do what you need to do, but don't get distracted by shiny objects. I thought, to hell with TikTok. I'm not going to do it because I'm in these other podcasting groups and everyone's saying I'm getting great reach from TikTok. And I thought, I don't want to do it. I'm coming to 40 years old. I don't want to start. I can't dance. There's no way I'm dancing. So you give me the strength for that. And I always say, never compare yourself to anybody else other than who you was yesterday. That's it. That's all you've got to compare yourself, because you've never walked in their shoes. You don't know what they've experienced, what they've felt, their feelings, what they've seen. So you're comparing not apples to oranges, you're comparing apples to buildings, because it's a completely different life. So all you can do is compare yourself to what you was yesterday. And the last thing, I massively respect the fact that you have changed over from the Amazon guy, the amazing Amazon seller, to who you are now, brand creators, because obviously that pivot, you knew you was going to lose a proportion of your audience, but it didn't matter to you because it wasn't who you were. It wasn't congruent with who you are going to be. So I think the easy decision would be to stay on the path you was on, because you had the vanity metrics there. You had all them millions of downloads, but you thought, you know what? It's not right for me. I'm willing to take a less of an audience, but I know that I can impact them in a greater way. So I massively respect that, Scott. Really do.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah,
and so
I appreciate that.
Cheers. I've just got 5 questions, 1 sentence answers, then just for just for fun, what does your perfect day look like?
My perfect day?
Yeah, perfect day.
Oh, I'm doing it every single day right now. I get up, I do my walk, I basically get ready for the real day by showering, and then from there I brew a cup of coffee and I sit down and I might jump in for an hour and do a little bit of work in my community, and from there I'll podcast, and then from there I basically will do interviews like this with you, and then about 2:00 I'm done. Play disc golf with my son in the afternoon. He's 22. We play a round of disc golf, maybe jump in the pool, watch a little Yankees at night, and go to bed by 10:00. Try anyway.
Right.
But that's pretty much my perfect day. But yeah.
You're selling that to me, buddy. And what's a habit that contributes to your daily success?
Well, I think the habit is my morning walk, and it sounds kind of small, but it is a small thing that every single day when I do it, I feel amazing. I actually read a book called Tiny Habits, which I forget the author now. I should probably know, but that really changed it for me because I installed all of these little mini habits into my daily life. Like, for example, as soon as I get done with my shower and I'm about ready to go out in the other room, I just do 50 push-ups every single day. So like now I got my 50 push-ups done before I even get out of like the rhythm of the day. Right. So I install these. So I think a big thing is installing the tiny habits into your day. And one of them is taking that walk very first thing in the morning.
Yeah, I love it. And what scares you, Scott?
Oh, what scares me?
Yeah.
Well, snakes in your pool. I had a snake in the pool yesterday, so that did scare me a little bit. I showed my wife earlier. It was a small one, but I didn't know if it was a copperhead, and those copperheads are actually more venomous than actually a large one. So snakes scare me.
Yeah, that scared me as well. So if I asked your 5 closest friend, what is your superpower? What would they say to me?
Oh, they would probably say that I am really, really good at getting people fired up and wanting to go out there and just, jump off the cliff with me, and we'll open up our parachutes together. Like, I think that they would say, you're the one that gets us, fired up and believing that we can do just about anything we put our mind to.
Yeah, that's awesome. And obviously you've got a book out called The Take Action Effect. What other book would you recommend? And we'll link to both your book and whatever book you recommend in the show notes.
Yeah, I would probably say Tiny Habits. Yep. I would do Tiny Habits. I love that book. It taught me a lot. And I always use it now as like, I'll give you an example. I've been having frozen grapes at night. Anybody, you ever try frozen grapes?
No, never.
Oh, do it. Do it. There's a hack for anyone right now. Little evening little snack. I love snacks, so I'm trying to stay away from snacks. But if you freeze them, they're actually more flavorful, and it just makes them last a little bit longer. They're really good. It's almost like ice cream in a sense. But what I was trying to take this one capsule every day. It's just a vitamin before bed, and I couldn't get myself to remember to take it because I'm always taking my supplements in the morning. And I'm like, I got to install something. So I'm like, when I have the grapes, I have the supplement. See? So I installed that little tiny habit. So now tonight, I got to have the grapes. I have the capsule. So see, just install that tiny habit.
I'm going to try that. So as soon as I go home, I'm going to freeze some grapes and hopefully.
Oh, do it.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I'm telling you, man, they're awesome.
That's awesome. And if people wanted to find out more about you and what you do and your podcast, etc., where would they go, Scott? And I'll link it all in the show notes.
Yeah, I would say brandcreators.com is the website. And then just go to iTunes or any of your podcast players and then just search for Rock Your Brand Podcast, or just search Scott Voelker and I'll come up. That's
awesome. Well, Scott, thank you so much for your time, buddy. I really, really appreciate it, buddy. I've had an amazing time. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, Dean, no problem. Thank you. Good luck. I can't wait to see what you do. And, actually, for us to dig in a little bit further to this new niche that this new niche site that you bought, and
that'll be awesome.
Help you build that thing out. That'll be fun.
Oh, that'll be brilliant. Yeah. Thanks, Scott.